Uh,
All right, I think we have started. So I thought I'd start by telling you a story. It's the story of the person who coined this philosophy, and I'm going to call the philosophy secular Buddhism because, as Tina said, the parts of Buddhism that we're interested in for pain recovery really have very little to do with religion or belief. They're more about psychology, and specifically the psychology of suffering. So the story is about a young man in about 560 BC. And his name is the Buddha, which means the guy who woke up, essentially. And he had a very fabled life. There was a prophecy made when he was born, and he was actually born to a king in India. His father was one of the kings of the 16 kingdoms of India. And this prophecy was that either he would conquer all of India and unite India, or he'd become a great spiritual teacher. So obviously his dad did not want him to become a great spiritual teacher. He wanted him to be a worldly leader. And he tried everything he could to stop his son from encountering the pain and suffering of life, because really, for good or for ill, suffering is what prompts us to grow often. But the young Buddha was having none of it. And when he was 16, he escaped from his beautiful, luxurious palace with all of its great food and lovely young women and delights. And he went out of the palace, and the first thing that he saw was a sick person. And the story is that this is the first time he'd ever come across sickness. And it really struck him that, none of us get to escape this. None of us get to escape pain in the body. None of us get to escape sickness. So then he went back to the palace. So he thought about that a bit. And he went out a second time, and he saw an old person. And of course, he was young and gorgeous. And he also was struck very deeply by the fact that, oh, I too will get old. My body is not always going to remain young and perfect and free of suffering. What to do about this? So he came back to the palace a third time. And then he went out again. And of course, this time he sees a dead person. And this is when it hit him that we are limited and mortal, and that we're going to have to find a way to deal with our mortality, the fact that the body dies. So long story short, when he was 29, he actually left his life of privilege, of luxury. He left the palace. He also left a wife and a son who he'd named Rahula, which means bond or chain or fetter. He left his 1-year-old son and went out in search of the answer to suffering. Because this was now his big question. What do we do? We're all going to encounter suffering. We're all going to encounter pain. What's the way out? Is there a way to respond to it? That was the great question that he asked. And he eventually came up with an answer. And the good news is he did reunite with his wife and son. He didn't abandon them forever. And the answer he came up with was sort of a description of what pain is and what suffering is as a kind of overlay on top of pain. So I'm going to break it down, what he taught and what psychological Buddhism teaches. The first realization he had, and this came out of sitting in meditation. He sat in meditation for, interestingly, supposedly 40 days. The first realization he had is that suffering exists. But the Buddha and Buddhists love to make lists. And so he said, well, there are three main kinds of suffering. And the word he used for suffering doesn't have a great translation in English. The word he used is dukkha, which kind of means unease, or this feeling that something isn't right, that something isn't satisfactory. Even if we don't have persistent pain, we can still feel that our lives are off in some way, or that something is missing. And he called this dukkha, which we translate as pain. But he said, look, if you examine it really closely, there are three kinds of pain. There's the pain, what he called the pain of pain, which is physical and emotional pain. And I think, at least most of us here are intimately familiar with physical pain. He said it's part of life. There's no escaping physical pain. There's also no escaping emotional pain. Don't give up, there is more. So physical and emotional pain are things that we all encounter. And then he said the second kind of pain is the pain of change. That we think things are going well in our lives, and then something changes. In my case, I would say my persistent pain happened almost overnight, and it really turned my life upside down. And it was a very, quote, normal life. But that can happen and does happen to anybody. We lose people we love, a pet dies, we have to be in lockdown, our planet is ravaged by fire or disease. That is inevitable, according to the Buddha. That's one of the kinds of pain we're going to have to go through in life and deal with, is the fact that things change. And somehow as humans, we want to hold on to things. When things are good, we want to hold on to that. But the Buddha said we can't really, that change is part of life that we have to make peace with. So there's the pain of pain, there's the pain of change. And then the third kind of pain he talked about is the pain of conditions. In other words, our happiness or our state of being is so dependent on other conditions in the world around us. You might think, okay, I'm going to get up and go to work this morning, and I'm going to be there on time. I'm going to get in my car at 10 till 8, and I'll arrive at work at 8:30. But traffic jam happens and you arrive at work at 8:45. Those conditions are out of our control. So it's quite a thorough analysis of pain. And I think if we think about it, we can admit that, yeah, these kinds of pain is something we're going to encounter, whether we like it or not. The big question, though, is why do we suffer? If we know that the world is a changing place and we're likely to encounter stuff that we can't control, why do we suffer? And this is the Buddha's second insight, and I think it's the big one. It's the insight that suffering comes from wanting things to be different. It's kind of an overlay we put on pain. And this, I personally, when I thought about this in the context of persistent pain, I found this very, very difficult to accept initially, because what the Buddha is saying is, yes, we can have physical pain, for example, but that physical pain is just kind of a raw data. And I know some of you have been doing meditations with Tina where, for example, you'll practice just being with the sensations as they are. Am I right about that? Has anyone done any of those? Maybe not here. Okay. But, that's something perhaps you'll do in the future, where you go to a part of your body, maybe in pain, it may not be in pain. And let's say you feel a tingling sensation in your left palm. Okay, let's just imagine you feel a tingling sensation in your left palm. That is simply the sensation. But if you have persistent pain in that area of your body, it's very, very tempting to have a very strong emotional reaction to that sensation, which is different from how you'd feel if that sensation was in a part of your body without persistent pain. So for me, my pain's in my feet. And if I just go in an objective way into my feet and hang out with the sensations there, I can maybe feel, okay, there's some tingling or some tightness or, maybe some buzzing. But what really gets me into trouble is the feelings I have about it, from years of living with it. And those feelings are where the suffering comes from, said the Buddha. So I'll just speak for myself. I might think, oh, here it is again, or what's called in acceptance and commitment theory, dirty pain thoughts. They're negative thoughts about the pain. This will never go away, or I'll never be able to do X, or I'll never be able to do Y, or whatever. Those thoughts are actually not the reality of the pain sensations. So the idea is that pain might be inevitable, and I'm certainly not saying persisting pain is inevitably going to go on forever, because we know that's not true. But some kind of pain is inevitable in our lives. The question is, do we have to overlay it with suffering, with that strong emotional response, which actually makes it worse? And, for me anyway, that was a hard thing to admit. Wow, when I stepped back, I could see that if this was my pain experience, half of it was the actual physical sensations, and half of it was what was going on in my head and my emotions around those sensations. And for me, that's been actually very empowering, recognizing, wait a minute, I can change those responses over time and with training. So that's the second thing the Buddha taught, is that even though pain is inevitable, suffering really comes from fighting against the pain, in the sense of wishing it would go away, wishing it would be different. And this is whether we're talking about persistent pain or losing your iPhone. We tend to wish things were different. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean you don't make every effort to change it. That's what we're doing in Brain Changer. But the idea is that that attitude just adds to the overall pain experience. So there's one more part of the Buddha's solution. He said, okay, so, if we all have pain, and if the suffering, the emotional suffering we feel, is caused by wanting it to go away, wishing it were different, what's the solution? And the words he used, or the words he spoke, he said that peace comes from relinquishing, letting go, releasing. So relinquishing, letting go, releasing. In other words, kind of accepting what is while still working to change it. It's a sort of a paradox. So, again, in my case, let's say I'm having a day where there are some strong sensations in one of my feet. I'm still going to work my Brain Changer program. I'm still going to exercise. I'm still going to do, all the things I'm supposed to be doing. At the same time, instead of going, oh, I wish I weren't having, this kind of day where the sensations are up, I can make a decision to say, okay, well, this is how it is for now, for today. I know it won't be this way tomorrow. It's okay. These are not damage signals. These are simply an oversensitized nervous system. So, that kind of acceptance is something that takes a lot of practice. You don't just snap your fingers and go, oh yeah, I'm fine with whatever's going on at the moment. But there is something about that releasing or letting go that can be very helpful. And so in Buddhism, there are actually particular techniques for this that are to do with kindness towards oneself and the sensations that one's going through. So that's going to be the last part of this talk. Kindness. It's not that it's not that releasing or relinquishing is a sort of dispassion or disinterest or a blunt feeling of I don't care what's going on. It's not that at all. It's actually that you come to yourself and you come to the sensations that you're feeling with a great deal of empathy and compassion, so that you don't make them worse. And the Buddha taught that there are 3 kinds of kindness. It's like the 50 words for snow that the Eskimos, the Inupiats, use north of where I live, except there are 3 words in Buddhism for kindness. So the first one he called Maitri, which means friendliness. And this is just an attitude of friendliness towards ourselves, that sometimes we're so hard on ourselves, we're so harsh with ourselves, especially if we do have a pain experience. And the advice given is treat yourself like you treat a good friend. If especially in terms of self-talk, if you're really hard on yourself or hard on the way you respond to pain, ask yourself, would I say this to a good friend? And try and cultivate that attitude of friendliness. So, for me, the way that this works is, if I am having a hard day, I might just put my hand on my heart and say, yeah, I know this is a rough one, and it's all right. Reassure myself that there are ups and downs, and that it's okay. There's someone there with me, caring for me, in this case, myself. The second kind of compassion he called karuna, which means a deep sort of empathy. And that one is something that takes practice, I think. If we're not used to empathizing with our own condition, but a way into this is that it is that being with yourself in the way that you'd be with a friend if they'd come to you and said, something really hard's happened. So let's say a friend comes to you and they've lost their pet and they're devastated. What do they really want? They want you to be with them, not to necessarily say anything that fixes the pain, but to just be with them and look into their eyes and acknowledge the experience that they're having. And so the question is, can we do that for ourselves? That's a little step beyond simple friendliness, just wishing someone well, or in this case, yourself. That's a really kind of deep compassion of, I'm a human being. I am suffering. I deserve love in the way that, a mother would love you, or some other very, very close friend. So here's one possible application to pain. And that is, and I know this might put a few people off. So if it doesn't resonate with you, just ignore it. It's just something that has worked for me, is sometimes I will actually go into those sensations and surround them with a feeling of love. Like if there is some tingling or some ache in my feet, I will actually say to those sensations, thank you so much for being here and protecting me, because I know, again, that this is an output of an overprotective nervous system. It's not an indicator of damage. I love you. If there is anything I can do for you, let me know. I embrace them. I welcome them. And, oddly enough, for me, that helps. Sometimes the sensations attenuate, or at the very least, my own feeling of struggling with the experience is ameliorated. So that's one possibility in terms of that deep kind of empathy. The third strategy, the third kind of kindness, and this is the last one that I'll talk about, is what the Buddha called upeksha, or equanimity. And that is simply being with whatever's going on, whether it is physical sensations or emotions or a noise in the outside world, say when you're trying to meditate, being with it in a way that you're not judging it. So, if you haven't yet had an opportunity to experience some of the meditations that Tina's doing, where you go into your body and you actually are just present with the sensations, I think that's possibly a link she could send out afterwards. There's a meditation teacher called Shane Brennan who teaches that technique of equanimity, where you're just guided in a very non-judgmental way to go into the part of your body that's having sensations, name the sensations in a neutral way, and then reassure yourself, I'm safe. These are not dangerous sensations. So just as a recap, the three kinds of kindness are friendliness and deep empathy for oneself and equanimity. And there's one tiny little bonus technique that I'll throw in before we do the meditation. And this is specifically a Buddhist technique for dealing with those times when you're feeling like, this is only happening to me. Sometimes when we're in a lot of pain or in a lot of suffering, you can feel very alone in the experience. You can feel that nobody understands it. And I think particularly with persistent pain, it's not well understood in society. And so it's very easy to feel nobody understands this thing that I'm going through. So the technique is to take whatever you're going through and send out the wish in your mind. May all people with whatever it is. So for me, I say, may all people with foot pain, but it could just be, may all people with pain be happy, peaceful, and free of suffering. And it's a kind of fake it till you make it technique. You may not feel it at first, but it's something that works with repetition, and it just kind of makes you feel less alone, and it takes that energy of suffering and turns it outward to well-wishing. So when you feel alone and stuck in your own suffering, you just close your eyes and you think to yourself, may all people, or all beings, I mean, really, because animals have pain too, right? So may all beings who are in pain at this moment be free of pain, free of suffering, peaceful and happy. And somehow that just shifts something in the mind. So folks, I think that's it for the talk part. We're ready to do a relaxation and a meditation. All right, so there are two options for physical position. You can stay in your chair if that's comfortable, or if you want to lie down, you can do that too. I mean, there is some danger of falling asleep, but it's okay. You know, if you fall asleep in a meditation, basically it just means you need to sleep. So I'm going to give everybody a minute just to find a position that's comfortable. If you are in a chair, it's good to have your butt a little higher than your knees, which means sometimes putting a cushion under your butt, or, you know, if you can lean back against a wall or get some pillows. I'll just give you a minute to get comfortable. And if you'd like to turn off your camera so that you can completely relax, you can do that too.
Can I ask roughly how long it would take?
Yes, about 15 minutes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Alrighty. All right, is everybody comfortable? I'm going to take that as a yes. So where you are, close your eyes. And we're going to relax the body from the head to the toes. So bring your awareness to your head, and in particular to your forehead. And just check in and see, is my forehead creased and wrinkled? Or can I just smooth out that part of my body as though someone were taking a gentle hand and stroking my forehead? So relax and release the skin of the forehead. And then see if you can relax your eyes, even though they're closed. Because we think so much, the eyes have a tendency to want to see out. So see if you can relax the eyes towards the back of the skull. Just let them drop in and know that for the next 15 minutes, we don't have to think or force or analyze anything. We're just going to let the eyes take a break. And then check in with your mouth and see, is there any tightness around the muscles around the mouth? See if you can relax those muscles. Could even let your mouth or your jaw hang open. We carry a lot of stress in those muscles around the eyes and the mouth. So see if just for now you can let some of that tension go. And then bring your awareness to your throat and see if you can relax the inside of the throat. One way to do this is to see where the root of the tongue is inside the throat. Follow the tongue all the way down and just see if you can relax the root of the tongue so that the inside of the throat relaxes and the skin on the outside of the throat can also relax. Next, we'll bring our awareness to the shoulder blades. And as far as you can, see if you can relax and release the shoulder blades down the back. Almost as though you can imagine, if you're carrying any burdens, imagine that those burdens are like bundles bundled inside cloth that you're carrying on your shoulders, almost like a sack. And just briefly to yourself, name those burdens, whatever they might be, anxiety or irritation or pain or fear, and drop those bundles, drop those sacks off your shoulders to the floor. Just let them go for now. And see if you can send some kindness to those shoulder muscles, the trapezius muscles between the neck and the shoulders. And even if you can only soften around the edges of the tension, that's a great start. You just take your mind to the edges of the tension in the shoulders and see if by sending some kindness, you can get those edges to soften and relax just a little bit. Next, take your awareness to your mid-back, the muscles around the ribs. Be aware of the spine and see if you can soften those a little bit. If not, just send them some kindness, some goodwill. Maybe take a breath. And then move the awareness down to the lower back. Just noticing the muscles around the spine. Noticing the spine itself. And seeing if you can relax those muscles if there's any tension there. Just let your lower back drop towards your butt if you're sitting up, or relax towards the floor if you are lying down. Next, move your awareness around the front of the body. So we'll check in with the heart center in the middle of the chest. And just see if you can pick up any subtle tension there. Are you holding any tension in the middle of the chest? Sometimes we might be breathing shallowly in that area. See if you can use the breath, especially a deeper out breath, to just effect a subtle release of that area. So just breathing gently into your upper chest. And on the out breath, relaxing and releasing any of the tension around your sternum area. Now we'll move down to the belly. And if you like, you can put a hand on your belly and see if you can notice that as you breathe in, the belly moves outward towards your hand. And as you breathe out, the belly contracts towards the back body. So there's this lovely rhythm with the in-breath where the belly moves out, and the out-breath, the belly moves in. Just stay with that for a few moments. It can be a very comforting thing to just breathe into your hand in your lower belly. Now we'll move our awareness into the buttocks. And at this point, I'd like you to just feel your buttocks making contact with the chair or the floor or the bed, wherever you're sitting. And just feel that you're held, you're stable, you're grounded. Can feel the left buttock, the right buttock, And just notice, are they even? Is the weight evenly distributed on the chair or on the ground? Or is one buttock higher than the other? Either way is fine. You just are paying attention, noticing where your body's at. And then last, we'll take the awareness into the legs. So you can start with the thighs, those big muscles that do so much work. And just see if, even with your mind, you can release the thigh muscles so that they drop towards the ground. Just giving them permission to let go. Thank you, thigh muscles, for doing all this work to hold me up. You can relax now. You can release and rest towards the ground or towards the seat of the chair. And then we take our awareness to our knees and our calves and do the same thing. Just let the calves release and relax. Just check in with the outer parts of the calves and see if there's any tension there. If there is, on the next out breath, you can see if that softens very slightly. Then going to the insides of the calves, relaxing them, the front of the calves, and then finally the back of the calves. And then we go to the feet and check in with the feet. See if you can feel the soles of the feet on the floor or the heels on the floor. And again, just relax any tension there. Even if it's very subtle and you can't feel any tension in the feet, you can check in with each toe, big toe, relax it. And the second toes, and just relax them. The third toes, sending them some softness. And the fourth and the fifth toes. And then feel your body sitting or lying here. And become aware of where the breath is moving in the body. So the first thing to notice is that when the breath comes into the body through the nose, can you notice that it's cool? That as that breath comes in through the nostrils, it's cool. And you can follow it all the way into the body, into the chest or the belly, however far it goes. And then also notice that when you breathe out, that breath leaving your nostrils is warm. So what we'll do for about 5 minutes is just lightly rest our awareness on the breath as it's entering and leaving the nostrils. Very gently, like you have a little feather there in front of the nostrils. And you're just noticing the movement of the feather as you breathe in and out. So very gentle awareness, breathing in, and very gentle awareness, breathing out. Just noticing cool in breath and warm out breath. At some point, your attention will wander, and that's totally fine. You just gently bring it back to that lovely sensation of the cool air coming into your nostrils and the warm air leaving your nostrils. Remember to relax the jaw as you're breathing. Not trying to do anything, just watching the breath. This good friend coming in and going out. And when your mind does go off on a train of thought, see if you can bring it back to the breath and really let go into the breath. Right now, there's nothing to think about or to do. You're just practicing letting go, letting the thought, letting the mind ride on the breath, on the wave of the breath. Just breathing in, breathing out. So we'll take a couple more minutes just to give you a chance to see how deeply can I let go in this moment. And then I will bring you out of the meditation. So it's getting towards the end of the meditation. And what I'll do is I'll ring the gong 3 times. Keep your eyes closed. Keep your focus on the breath. And when you hear the gong sound for the 3rd time, you can very slowly start to open your eyes.
That was wonderful. Thank you, Jess.
You're very welcome.
Totally blessed. How's everyone else feeling? There's a big smile from Carly.
Very relaxed.
Is our Sharon? Nice.
Well, I know it's 10 o'clock your morning, and it's half. I'd say go take a lovely nap. Why not? But maybe you might want to drink a cup of tea. I don't know.
Yeah.
That sounds good. Thank you so much, Jess. Those the concepts I'm aware of some of those, and I'll play with them more because I hadn't understood about breaking them down into the 3 components of kindness. So I'll share this recording with people afterwards for anyone who wants to revisit the theory of it. And thank you for such a wonderful meditation to push. No, it's not push isn't the right word, to float me into my day.
You're very welcome. It's really lovely to meet and see all of you, and I wish you well. Have a very good day and a good recovery journey. It's a good team of people who care a lot about you. So
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And remember, we've got group meditation on Thursday at 3 for anyone who can make it, our regular.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same link as today. Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Very much, Jess.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye, Sharon. And I'm just going to I've got Liz joining me for a meeting now, Jess, so I will, if you'd like to say a quick hello to her. She's just waiting. And in fact, Tim, our chairman, is there. Would you like to say a quick hello to him?
yes, I would. Yeah.
There he goes. And Carly's still with us. Carly, goodbye, Carly. That was great. Thank you. Oh, I should stop the recording. Stop. Recording.
Hi. Hello, Jess.